Good morning, everybody. My name is Anthony Jackman. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer with Expedient, and I have the pleasure to be joined by Jason Langone from Nutanix today. Welcome, Jason. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. I think maybe to start off, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at Nutanix?
Yeah, sure thing. So good morning, everybody. Jason Langone here. I run our AI business globally at Nutanix, so I'm very fortunate. I get to speak with customers all over the world about a variety of different use cases, a lot of which are really exciting. I am on theme here because this is a coffee chat, so I'm fully caffeinated, wired, and ready to go. Let's rock.
I didn't. I'm on the water theme. I had a little bit
good for you
this morning.
Better man than me.
So I think, in your role, you obviously talk to a lot of customers. You said you see a lot of use cases. What's the theme that you're seeing in the market or amongst your customers? Because I don't think I've ever seen a space change so rapidly.
What a great time to be in tech. I mean, I've been in tech 20 something years at this point, and it certainly seems like this is an opportunity, even if you kind of park technology for a moment, just for everybody's career. Like if you lean in and understand how to use this technology to generate business value, and you can articulate that to, the powers that be, I mean, onward and upward, from there. I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, how do we distill, what we've learned over the last 2 years in the field, selling to enterprise and large government agencies, and kind of, I guess, where I've got it. If I was to draw out a spectrum, I don't have a whiteboard handy, but if I was to draw one out, maybe to the far left, folks that are just getting started. To me, I think that's almost universally now people starting with RAG. Some ability to chat with the document repository, low risk, moderate to high reward. You can build some muscle memory and understanding an AI stack. On a middle of the spectrum, maybe, is people experimenting, dabbling, deploying agents, and OpenClaw has generated a lot of interest there. And I'm sure we'll talk about that today. And then maybe to the far right are organizations, trying to deliver AI capabilities, maybe as a service or through a provider such as Expedient to their employees, to their partners, to their business units. So that's kind of the spectrum as I see it. I mean, I'd be curious, because you talked to a lot of folks as well who are looking to get started probably yesterday. I mean, how does that, jive with what you're seeing?
You're definitely right that organizations are kind of across the spectrum. And I do see it progressing quickly. Where we started in AI was asking ourselves what was preventing companies from even getting started, because a lot of our conversations were with customers that knew that AI could deliver value to their business, but they either didn't know how to get started or they had too many concerns to get started. So that's really the place where we started our AI journey, was around identity, security, control, who can access what model for what purpose, and tying it to that customer's existing identity, right? I never wanted to own the customer's identity. And that's where we started. And then we've been expanding upon it since then. And, we have the customers with the basic chat use case. Most, like you said, are chat plus RAG, because AI access to business data delivers almost immediate value. On the other end of the spectrum, we have customers that have used our platform to automate business processes that are just happening in the background now, and it's just become part of their business day to day. So, really interesting.
I think that's where everyone's got to get to. I mean, it's I don't know, 10 years ago, it was all about robotic process automation, where you'd automate kind of what you could. But those technologies were fairly brittle. It was like if then else loops, essentially. Now with the power of AI, to your point, I think the folks seeing the most value are maybe not doing the sexiest use case out of the gate. They're automating high volume, high value business processes, and maybe part of that is what they're pointing AI towards. Maybe not even the whole process, but definitely where we've seen folks be successful are those taking those process maps from 10 years ago, identifying where they can point AI at on that process map. They're already measuring the input and the output, so it's almost immediate quantification of the value. So I'm with you there. Business processes are, gold mine.
It's funny you say the not the sexiest use cases produce the most value. That's 100% what we've seen internally. My team's job is to really front run so that we're doing what's coming next so that we can distill it down and make it consumable for customers. But we've tried to take our product line and push it out internally to prove to ourselves the value that it can deliver. So our best automations, our best agents have been built by non-technical people. They've been built by
That's awesome.
the business team or support analysts, the finance team, the marketing team. And, we've been able to automate away thousands of hours of work for things that are really critical to the business, but they don't require, the most technical person to do it. And it's really a process that we have to follow, but they were non-deterministic. And before AI, they were unsolvable. To your point about brittle RPA, they were unsolvable. And now we have non-technical employees solving these problems in a matter of days, which is really interesting.
How does your team engage these business folks, right? So you're talking business, someone who deeply understands the process, that area of the business, probably adjacent lines of business that are impacted by that flow, but probably are not hardcore technical, especially in this technology. How do you all engage? Like, how does that conversation start? How do you kind of remove maybe the perceived risk around using AI for this process? Because I agree with you 100%, but I'm kind of curious, like, what's the conversation starter look like?
Yeah, the first thing we do is address the security of the platform up front, because most companies hopefully have someone that is concerned about security and is watching it. So we try to answer those questions first. Zoom call, spam all day long. It doesn't respect my do not disturb. So the first thing we do is address the security of the platform, and then we try to pull out of the customer what the good use case for them is, which is something that you can identify someone that actually understands the process, and not only the process that they're following today, but the why, right? Why is this being done, and why is the process the way it is? We ask them to identify what are the inputs to it, and what is the outcome you're trying to get, and who else in the business needs to be involved to answer these questions, right? This is the human side of it, because we're a service provider and we have to help our customers to get to the endpoint. And then it's really about getting a few of the right people in the room. We connect the data first. We walk through the real process with them, and then we map that into the simplest solution possible, right? Complex is not your friend when you don't need it. So we aim for simple, and we're creating, we already have a few, and we're creating a team of people that, we kind of call our outcomes engineers, that are technical and they understand our platform, but they also understand our customers and business process and how to translate one into the other.
Man, I'm a big believer in the why. I think it's a great question. 100% going to steal that one. Although I'm kind of curious. So you asked, like, well, why do you do it this way? Do you ever get, I don't know, that's like the way it's done. Like, do you get anyone re-architecting, or at least re-architecting part of a process once you start talking about the why? That's an interesting question.
100%. And especially internally, right? Internally, I have the most pull to do things. And something I've tried to impress on people is that you can automate the thing you have today. You can automate the process exactly as it sits, or you can ask, what are my inputs and what's my desired outcome? And you can build a process that lends itself towards being automated with AI, and that can accelerate it, right? You can get there either way, but you may be able to get there quicker, or you may be able to have a more stable system if you rebuild the process to be done by AI.
Yeah, it makes sense. And, you touched on security, and that was kind of like the first gate to overcome. I'll say an interesting thing that I've noticed over the last, 2-3 years, kind of in this space since maybe the birth of ChatGPT, is, if you've been in infrastructure for a long time, you're used to talking to CISOs and getting security approval and going through compliance and kind of the usual stuff you see in the enterprise. I have never spoken to more chief legal officers, general counsel. There's so much engagement with the legal team on, what models are allowed to be used. And, that's kind of been one of our lessons learned over the last couple of years is, when you're out talking to, organizations about, helping them on their journey with AI, don't wait into the 11th hour for, legal to enter the chat. Engage them early, understand if they've got, written down what kind of their policies are, things you got to think through. Can we use Chinese models? Can we not use Chinese models? Some very basic things to, a more sophisticated kind of corporate stance on the use of AI models. I'm guessing you see the same.
Absolutely. Right. And that's again, if I talk about where we started, that was the purpose of our gateway, is that you can consume any model anywhere in the same way. And by corporate policy, you can dictate which models show up. You can also dictate who has access to what model, and you can dictate which models can be used for, I'm just going to send a prompt, or I'm going to bring in data from RAG, or I'm going to connect to some of my systems. You can dictate which ones you want to use. And I think we primarily at this point see our customers using the big, well-known public models, right? ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. That's the bulk of it. We see some small model use. We can do them up through Fireworks, but we also can run models ourselves. The demand there hasn't been through the roof, but I think that's because the agent story hasn't fully caught on yet, where you start being more concerned about things like consistency of the output, and this thing's behavior is not going to change day to day. You can wrap evals around it and you can know that it's bulletproof. Maybe you just don't want your data to leave your four walls, right? There's legitimate reasons that CISOs and others have that concern, including customer contractual requirements, right? I'm a company and I've told customer A that their data will not leave my four walls or leave Expedient's four walls if they're operating with us. We have to have a way to respect that. And then obviously cost, right? When an agent starts burning tokens 24 hours a day working on your behalf, cost becomes important, and local models, I think, can be a good way to control that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's eye-opening when folks start to experiment with agents, and those that are already deploying or testing OpenClaw. I mean, they already know this. They probably learned this lesson in the first 24 hours. But those just entering the space or looking to enter the space, agents are always on. They're always working. They're always eating. Eating tokens. We've been looking at some telemetry with some customers where, okay, maybe an average human who's using some AI tool, Copilot, chat, you name it, is chewing through 7 to 9 million tokens a day, maybe somewhere in that range. An agent, on the other hand, could easily chew through 20 million tokens a day. That's it's one human and that's one agent. You start to extrapolate that out and you realize, oh my goodness, these things are, they could blow your budget pretty quick. So, to your point, gateway technology becomes really important. Understanding not maybe every prompt or every request or every use case needs the Ferrari model. There is a place for the Honda Civic model. There is a place for, smaller fine-tuned models specifically for AP or for logistics. And so I think it's super early days for that. But the moment people start experimenting, they realize, I went to sleep. I woke up. It went through 1 million tokens while I was asleep. What did it even do? And then the other thing too, you see as these models get more powerful, they're consuming more tokens for the same inbound prompt. And that's something else, is the models are getting hungrier themselves and generating a response. So again, it's an interesting trend to watch.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you're even seeing it show up in the public model pricing, where the new model comes out and maybe it's not more expensive, but under the covers, they've shortened the average token length because of something they're doing, right? And it's in the background. These models are just thinking a lot more depending on what settings you give it. To your point about people running OpenClaw and this thing just burning tokens, we have an internal employee that does historically, like, career project manager, knows how to deal with a lot of information, and he got hooked on the OpenClaw thing. And in a low risk environment, he spun it up and was like, how could I make this kind of do my heavy lifting? And he's seen great success, but his token numbers are shocking, right? Like, they're shocking because I mean, this thing's just constantly trying to get better and run all day and churning through messages and emails and documents and Jira boards and everything else. And yeah, they can eat a lot. But to your point about small models, he's used a lot of local small models, including ones that are just running on like a home PC, and he's been able to test it and show value. So there's definitely a place for the whole gamut of models.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, and again, it's something people, I think, maybe it's hard for them to grasp until they're in the space. But then once, you know, again, once they just stand up their first agent or, you know, deploy OpenClaw for the first time, they realize that, yeah, this stuff will chew through tokens. To your point, frontier model price per million token might stay the same, but the amount of tokens to generate the same output, arguably with better quality, goes up because, again, it's chewing through, you know, it's chewing through more tokens. You know, I think you guys are in a really interesting spot because you know, you read a lot now. I feel like every week I'm reading an article in The Economist on supply chain of chips or memory, and you know, there's plenty of folks we talk to. You know, what's your timeline on getting started? Oh, it was yesterday. Or you know, or we want to get started. We want to test OpenClaw. We want to build an agent to do or to automate this business process. And so we've certainly seen a growing appetite for engaging service providers. So, you know, an organization can remain focused on maybe the process, the compliance posture they want to have, but also, you know, leverage someone like Expedient to manage the infrastructure, you know, with the right set of software, delivering the right set of capabilities. I mean, I'm guessing you guys are seeing an uptick in inbound demand as well, would be my guess. I mean, we see this every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Our AI product line, I would say, is by far the fastest selling thing that we've ever created. The number of inbound leads is really high, but it's not just leads, it's they're converting to real sales, and those real sales are turning into real customer value, which is really the important thing. And you know, I think part of the reasons that customers are joining us on the journey is because we've purposefully not created a point solution where it's like, hey, here's something and AI is hot and we can go sell it. We've considered the whole story up front, and again, addressed identity, security, control, observability, and everything we started with carries through to the next step. And it goes from chatbot to I've got a bunch of agents and I'm running local models in Expedient's infrastructure on Nutanix software right alongside the rest of my workloads. So my security and my operations team is happy because I'm not out in left field doing something new that they don't understand. I'm doing everything in a controlled manner.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on it a couple of times, like this notion of local inferencing, you know, which you could also describe as like fixed price inferencing. And when, you know, I even think of like the stuff I've got running, you know, outside of my corporate environment, but stuff that logs into school portals to pull grades or build lesson plans, you know, update some kid who's now got to take the bus instead of the walking, whatever it is. I mean, I got a fair amount of agents that run, you know, some use frontier models, some use external models like a Minimax as an example. It's still good, but again, more like the Honda Civic line. And then I've got a couple of rigs, you know, at the house that I'm hiding from the missus in the utility room, just because I want to experiment, but I don't want to experiment while I'm watching my bill run up. So it's like, all right, let me experiment with some of these agents and iron out the kinks and recognize that, okay, I can do this. And maybe I need to pivot 50% of those requests or 90% or 10% of those requests to a better model at some point. But I love the concept of fixed price, you know, inferencing. So I'm not worrying about all of my failed experiments. And, you know, you think about how you stand up and you test and you learn anything. It's a lot of, I hit a bug or this didn't generate the right output. So I'm going to learn, I'm going to Google, I'm going to search, I'm going to try it again, I'm going to modify something. And so this rapid prototyping, to me, I'm not worried about setting off a flag on the checking account because it's, you know, it's burning through local tokens. And then at some point, maybe I'll migrate that through, you know, again, through a gateway. But to me, that's an interesting thing to think through as well, depending on your level of experimentation.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, if you think about it, every CEO in the world at this point knows that there is value to be had from AI, and most are willing to invest in it. But what most CFOs are not comfortable with is uncertainty about what that investment is, because, well, I've got a meter over here and there's these things called tokens, and I don't actually know how many my use case is going to need. So there's a lot of uncertainty around it versus, hey, let's commit to it and let's experiment. You kind of invest, like with us, exactly what your monthly bill is going to be. Here's your local model, and it's kind of all you can eat as you learn, and cost optimize as you go, right? Because you'll find the use cases.
Yeah.
It's like, I need a frontier model for this. It's probably not most tasks.
It's probably, it's spot on, especially if you're not doing hardcore, code dev, you're not banging out code. It's certainly, and you're not some multimedia agent or a big fashion house in Italy. You're probably right. They're nice to have. They're nice to tap into. I mean, we all use them, but can you use them when you need them versus just defaulting, to them? And I will say, even, one of the trends we've seen even over the last 3 months, I feel like everybody I talk to now has an Anthropic subscription or is about to sign an Anthropic subscription, which this time last year, it seemed like it was mostly OpenAI, and some Gemini, and, I like, Gemini as well. But Anthropic really seems to be picking up steam. Again, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing. Maybe it's just some isolated data points we're seeing, but it does seem very popular, their models.
Yeah, I always like to judge by my friends that are not in the tech industry. And what are they talking about? And like ChatGPT, almost like it became a verb. It was like saying you're going to Google something. Oh, ChatGPT. That was a year ago. I hear a lot of Claude now from non-technical people, which, that doesn't mean that Anthropic's running ahead and is going to win the race. It just means that they're both running so fast and they both produce massive value and have kind of hit escape velocity.
Yeah, I like that perspective a lot, because, you and I, we wake up, we're thinking tech, probably thinking experiments we were, thinking about when we went to sleep. But, folks that are, truly business users, what are they using? I mean, I do think that's a good bellwether. Looking through these questions, which are really good questions that just popped up. The first one, curious, how many new models do you see coming available, and how do you decide when to add them to your environment? I'll toss over to you on like how often you'll update your environment, Anthony. But I will say I'm testing a new model. Probably every other week. I don't think that's an exaggeration. Where, we saw Google released a nice, local open weight model. I don't know, in the last 7 days, people have pivoted to, depending on what your use case is. You have things like Minimax and GLM. And again, are you allowed to use Chinese models? You're not allowed to use Chinese models. That dictates a lot. But the pace of innovation and new model development and new model versioning is ridiculously fast. So maybe, Anthony, how do you decide, when it makes sense to add one into the Expedient environment, or is that not even something you have to think through all that much with Gateway?
We do still have to think about it, right? Because we have to make it available to our clients, and there are some considerations, right? Even if you take OpenAI or Anthropic, they release a new model, right? There are considerations to make sure that our gateway is interacting with it in the most efficient manner, right? That somehow caching didn't break, right? You wouldn't want to break caching.
Yeah.
So there's some considerations, but yeah, we stay up to date. The team is aware of everything that gets released, and then they push them out. I will say, maybe a month or so ago, I think we weren't on the ball enough, but we identified it, and now it's like, nope, this is top priority. Our customers want these things like the next day or like the next week at the latest, because the news releases are just constant. It's 4.5, it's 4.6, 5.4, 5.5. It's nonstop. And then obviously there's the the Chinese models or the open models. And those are really just being aware and choosing what our catalog is. I don't think our customers want to log in and see a billion different models. I think they want to see.
Agreed.
I think they want to see the majors, a light selection of what the winners in the open market are, and of course, to any one client, if they were to make a request to us, we could make anything available. Of course, we could scope the hardware, and we'll probably talk about this, and run it on Nutanix AI internally. Or we can spin it up in one of our partner locations where we can run local models as well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point too, because we've seen organizations who might, a new model comes out, Google releases one, there's a new Quint, whatever the model is, and the chatter, the leaderboard looks promising. The chatter in Reddit or Discord sounds promising. Maybe they already have in mind, like, okay, this might replace the current model we're using. Maybe we do want to do fixed costs, but we want to test it first. And that's normally a spin up of resources external to the organization. I mean, almost always, it seems, unless someone's investing in large GPU farms on prem. So I think that's interesting. I mean, the second question here, maybe how does a smaller organization, manage token growth, have a good cost control posture? Some of it comes down to like rate limiting, routing to the appropriate model. I don't know if you got any other thoughts there, Anthony.
I mean, you hit two of them, right? Rate limiting, which can be done at an organization level, a team level, a user level, a model level, a project level, right? So there's various ways to do that. So you can rate limit, you can just govern total spend per user. But we also give our clients visibility out of the box down to the user level of what models they're using, how many tokens they're using, what the kind of aggregate cost is. And for most of our clients, we actually do try to give them that close to unlimited experience where it's like they know what they're buying and we know what the average user looks like. And we just want to enable them to run. And in terms of the router, that's the default that most of our clients use. We have a smart model router that's built directly into our chatbot. So our clients can just fire a question at it. They don't really have to think about which model should this use. It will pick an appropriate model. It will know whether or not to tie in the RAG sources. I mean, our clients can, of course, pick which ones are going to be available to it. But we've really tried to aim for that easy experience. And I don't want clients sitting there thinking about what their token burn is going to cost all day. I'd like them to just know upfront what kind of usage they're going to get.
Yeah, I was looking. I couldn't agree more. I was looking for a screenshot, but I can't find it. So I had an agent I stood up about a week ago, and I pointed it directly to a model. I didn't plumb it through a gateway. I gave it some tasks that I wanted it to do. Again, personal stuff, not necessarily work related, but still saves me time to get out and pull weeds or whatever else I need to do, on the weekends. And I actually didn't wake up to it. I came back in the afternoon and it was like rate limit exceeded. And to me, I mean, it's like the greatest reason why you would want something like a gateway. It's like, okay, this thing's plugging along. It had a hard cap of X, and I just pointed it to a single model. If I was using a gateway technology, it would say, okay, well, you've burned through your quota this minute, this hour, this day, this week, this month on this model, but we can redirect it. I've looked at this request. This request isn't rocket science. I can redirect it to, a cheaper model that you still have capacity on, or you still have, a token budget on. So again, I think this technology becomes almost critical, especially when people continue and start experimenting and then start moving into production usage, hockey sticks. And then, the third question in the chat here is a really important question. Are tokens, primarily a unit of measure for agents, versus things like chat? And the reality is it's the currency for any AI you're doing. The difference is agents will burn through a lot more. And the easiest way maybe I can think of to articulate it, if Anthony and I are banging away at a chat prompt, we're humans. We got to type. We get an answer. We think about the answer, or chew on it. We type and we bang on the keyboard some more. But there's a fair amount of latency just because we're humans versus software, who's responding to software operates at just a very different speed. And so there's not as much delay for the human to think through something. You got software talking to software, 2, 5, 10x at the speed of what Anthony and I could do on a good day, fully caffeinated. So that's one of the reasons why token consumption is exponentially higher with agents.
Yeah, there's an interesting data point here. I don't know if this is good or bad for me, but Claude will tell you your peak token consumption hours, and it adjusts over time. Mine has never been before midnight. But the interesting thing is, I'm actually not always awake. It's that I tee up a bunch of work and then I I fire it off while I go to bed, and I wake up in the morning and it's like it's Christmas morning. I'm waiting to see what got done overnight.
Man, we are very similar. So I got 2 dogs. I take them for a nice long walk every night, like 10 o'clock, 10 to 11. We're, walking down by the river or wherever it is. And ideas, I'm normally thinking about something. And, I'm typing, I use Telegram's kind of the front end I use for most of my agents. So I'm typing kind of stream of consciousness, or I'm dictating stream of consciousness to work on. And again, like you, I hit go. I'm done kind of thinking about that. And, 4:30 or 5 a.m. when I wake up, it's, like you said, it's like Christmas morning. It's like, oh, okay, like you've been working on, you got stuck here. Let me get you unstuck. And it's awesome in my opinion. I like to think, you and I are probably fairly productive people. We probably need a better work-life balance. Maybe we could argue this type of technology can do 2 things. It can make you a lot more productive, which is great, and it will. But also, I'm trying my very best to help me get a little more balance, just free up some time, like stuff I shouldn't be doing on a Saturday. I should be hanging out with my kids at the park or at a basketball game or whatever. So like, can I get some of the more mundane things done with these agents that, it cost me 75 cents for that run, or $1.14 or $3, but it was worth it because now I have this hour free to go, again, do something in the yard, do something with the family, whatever.
Yeah, look, man, I've never been the person that like had to purposefully hide my phone. Like I don't have a social media addiction, and like if someone can't contact me for a while, I don't care. That's kind of changed because I connected all my agents to be able to notify my phone and to be able to command them remotely.
Uh-oh. Did we just lose Anthony, or did I drop? I think one of the agents didn't appreciate that comment. I don't know. If someone can drop in the chat if you can hear me. I don't know. Let's see. Julie is typing. What do you got, Julie? Did we lose me, or did we lose Anthony to one of his agents? My bet is the latter. We lost Anthony. Okay, so hey, let this be a lesson. You talk smack about your agents, they might do things. So the security boundary that you give them access to is important. And look, and he's back. I guess he apologized. I'll say even for me, because I use OpenClaw now for. Oh, you're back. I was cracking jokes that your agents took you out.
They might have. I think they heard.
Kind of the point, just to kind of close the loop. I was cracking jokes while you're gone, but I use OpenClaw to do a fair amount of things. I use NA to N, some other things, but OpenClaw is what I've been gravitating towards lately. And I use a fair amount of like remote browser control. So it could do things on LinkedIn for me. It can do things on various websites. But it is really important that you think through all that you're giving your agent access to. Am I giving it read-only access? And again, how am I thinking through browser sessions? I mean, there's a lot to think through, because then when you get, a little loose with the tongue like Anthony here, and you start talking smack about your agents, can they do something? Can they go execute a bad trade in your E-Trade account?
Yeah, that's a really important point, and it's kind of where our focus, or where our attention is going to be focused next. Something my team's already working on is how do we serve up the secure way for agents to interact with all of these things in the same way on an ongoing basis, including things that most customers wouldn't think of. People think of credentials, people think of network access. They don't think about, well, do I really want the token for this service to be like the security token for this service to be seen by the model? Probably not. You want to inject it in real time behind the scenes. We always think in human space of who's allowed to access what, but in agent space, it's about what agent can access what, for what purpose, and when. And trying to make that programmatic and understandable, I think, is important. And it's not an easy problem to solve, especially not for most customers. That's kind of where our attention is going for, not something that's available today, but something that's going to be coming next.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, it definitely, the context or the construct of security has changed, because again, it's to your point, even like what agents can talk to what other agents. and for what purpose. It's almost like in kind of in the security space or in the intelligence space, access is you have the right clearance, but you have need to know as well. Like the clearance alone doesn't get you access to the file or access to that room or access to the meeting. There has to be a need to know. And, kind of using some of these constructs as well in the agentic space, the trust but verify as well. Like, I think these things become, really important. So I'd be curious, like if we've got someone on this, on this live stream right now, and maybe the only thing they've done is, they've played around with Chat GPT, and maybe even on a personal level, maybe not even really at work. Like, do you have a recommendation on someone, again, who's been reading about it? Maybe their organization is about to take their first step on what a constructive, safe, economically viable first step is for an organization, kind of standing at the edge, or about, their toes are just in the pool, ready to jump in? You have an idea what that right first step is for someone like that?
I think I have two answers. I mean, I think there's the just simple answer for a person that wants to understand more and understand what's capable. Download, get Claude or ChatGPT and bounce into code or even just in the app and ask it to build a simple application for you. This isn't something you're going to carry forward to your organization, but can help you to understand a little bit of what's really possible to unlock more ideas. From a business standpoint, right? When someone runs and just does something like that on their own, Skunkworks project, it's great for learning. It doesn't necessarily help the organization because they're going to immediately ask about security, observability, control, all of these things. Mm-hmm. And that's really what reach out to Expedient and let's have a conversation so that we can give you the tool set that solves for all those problems so you can go work on what's interesting, because there's nothing interesting for most people about trying to build a security framework or observability for how everyone's interacting. Like, that's not what's interesting to people. So let us solve the unsexy stuff for you and let you go focus on business problems.
I love this advice. I even realized myself as, I experiment and tinker and hobby. I don't even want to be in the weeds on most of this stuff. Like I want a stable platform, or I'm focused on building out whatever I want to build out. And, a fair amount of what I do is also testing models and seeing how this works and can I reduce my own cost. But the platform, managing containers, deploying or understanding the security framework, risk mitigation, guardrails, I don't want to do any of that. To me, that's not fun. I've got, Mary, I got 3 kids. I don't have infinite time. Like, all right, I got 2 hours a night to hobby or play around with some stuff. I don't want to be trying to get something up and running that's like substrate level in the platform. So I love that advice as well, because I also think even if you're a technical person, if you spend a lot of time like building stuff you probably don't even need to worry about building, like low level, you'll get burnt out. You get burnt out because that stuff to me is not fun. It's not sexy. You're not really building anything of value. You're just proving that you can pull something off GitHub, deploy it on whatever device you're deploying it on, work through the kinks, and eventually 3 days later and very little sleep, you got it up and running. And now you can start building your agentic workflow. Just go build the flow, the workflow.
100%, man. And that's, that workflow you just described where it's like, oh, I'm pulling stuff from here and I'm launching and it works. And 3 days later, boom, I have something awesome. That's like the 3 most dangerous sentences that have ever been said for an actual enterprise. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
But those people that are doing that, that's, it's the company's job to enable them to do that within a proper framework so that the company can get the value out of it and the employee's happy with what they're working on. That's kind of the goal state.
Yeah, for sure. I know we're kind of coming up on time here. We talked about first step. Something else I think that is important, that again, we've seen over the last couple of years is, okay, maybe your chain of command says, hey, we want to go, Anthony, go explore a use case or where we should get started. At some point, and, here's a budget, here's a check. At some point, you've got to start showing quantifiable value. And then maybe that's not even with the chat bot, excuse me, maybe you just assume, hey, that's an initial experiment we want to do, although I do think you could build a value framework around that. How does Expedient help show or think through the value of AI? Because when I think through the organizations we've seen most successful, and they've really leaned in, and they're a really progressive organization in their adoption of AI, their adaptation of their business processes around AI. They've got IT leaders that speak like CFOs. They're talking net present value, additional free cash flow, which is how ultimately this should be framed. This is business value. These should be business discussions. How does Expedient help organizations take that big step kind of internally, organizationally, buy-in?
So you hit on something important there, or maybe not important, but it's kind of a given. I think everyone knows they can get value of giving their employees access to AI. Use the chatbot. Okay, it's relatively low cost. It's easy to give to everyone. Okay, but the next thing, right? We recently released what we call our agentic workflow engine, which is the simple workflow builder, the simple agent builder that gives you all the same security, observability, control, and visibility into what it's doing. And our goal with that product is that when we sell it to a customer, that within 3 months, they have real use cases running in production that they can define the value of. So they know every time this thing runs, I've saved 2 hours of human labor, and here's how much human labor cost me. And the platform tracks every time it runs and exactly what it did and how long it took, et cetera. So there's a direct translation from A to B. And the truth is that it only takes one, for our average client size, 1, maybe 2 use cases to where the whole platform just pays for itself. Like you get one thing in production, 2 at most, and this thing is paying for itself. And now everything else is gravy. And if your token consumption starts going up because you're building more, now the CFO understands that token translates directly to value, and the value is multiplied by an order of magnitude or more.
It's a tremendous answer, because I don't think this is part of the platform, so to speak, that most folks think through, right? They think maybe they recognize, hey, we got to understand security, we got to understand reliability, resilience, the ability to do rapid prototyping, an agent framework, blah, blah, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think a lot of people think through what the value framework is, how they're constantly measuring. The fact that you all have not only thought through that, but delivered that capability, to me becomes really important. Again, we've all been in various roles in our IT careers. Many of us have been in budget meetings where it's like, okay, there's 15 AI projects, 7 are going to get funded. Normally the 7 that get funded, maybe one of them's hard correlated to security or disaster recovery. The rest of them are, what's the business case? Can you justify the value for the amount of investment you're asking? Can you show your work on that calculation? Can you help me understand the risk and how you're going to mitigate the risk? And so having this, within the Expedient platform front and center, to me is you did a lot of the hard work for people. I mean, you could certainly, pull token telemetry and understand, organizational structure and headcount and fully burdened. I mean, you could try and build this yourself, and you can, but again, I come back to, for me, if it's already built, awesome. I can stay focused on, automating my business processes or spending time with my end users to get them comfortable using the platform so we can drive more value across the organization. I think that's awesome, Anthony.
Yeah. I think, we're almost up on time here. I think what I want to kind of close out with is tying everything together. I think a lot of people view it's like AI and infrastructure, and infrastructure's over here. It has to be a unified story, right? Because the end game of AI is having the appropriate system to where, yes, you have agents running all day, but you also have employees self-serving, building new agents and building new applications, and that those have to be able to run like everything else that you have. And like I said, Expedient considered this from the start, and it's part of the reason we chose to partner with Nutanix on it, right? We're using the gamut of Nutanix software.
Yeah, much appreciated.
to run all of this, right?
Right.
So our gateway and our agents run on NKP. The next logical extension is when clients start building custom apps with all the security we talked about, that they deploy directly into the Expedient infrastructure. And this is, I have a real world example. So I built an app that I vibe coded that had business value for Expedient. And one of the guys on my team created me a skill, and I went into the chat and I typed /launch to Expedient, enter, into a production Kubernetes cluster with proper DNS, certs, security, all of our existing security posture, everything. And yes, I know how to do that myself, but the point is I didn't have to. Like /enter, go, right? And I think that's where this all ends up. And the takeaway for customers is, to consider that the decisions you're making today are going to paint what's possible for you over the next few years. And infrastructure and AI have to be viewed as a unified strategy. It can't just be one or the other, or two separate paths. You're going to run into a lot of challenges.
Man, I think that's a great way to end it. I think that's great advice. For everyone who's dialed in, it looks like I saw a message go across the bottom. I think everyone's getting coffee or something like that, something to that effect. So that's good. Anthony, I very much, appreciate the time. I very much value our partnership, and I always love talking shop with you because we both, I think, are a junkie for this stuff. So that's always a blast as well.
Yeah. Great to see you somewhere that's not a conference.
That as well.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Jason, great to talk to you. And I'm sure we'll
Likewise.
talk soon.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.